A life in balance. Balance. It's what we seek to achieve in life, yet it is a constant struggle to attain. Parents, teachers, mentors, and guidance counselors often advise adolescents to pick a future profession based on what they like to do or what they find incredibly interesting. The basis of this recommendation is that if you love what you do, then you won't feel like you are working at all. Yet, this advice is more difficult to convert into reality than one might think. In today's very competitive market, landing a dream job is often just that, a dream. More than likely, the job that one ends up doing day to day does not bring them any joy at all. In the meantime, home can become a place of never-ending chores and financial responsibility. The result is that the only fun to look forward to is stealing a little time at a movie, the gym, or out with friends. John Coleman, co-founder of Passion and Purpose, Stories from the Best and Brightest Young Business Leaders, investigates the balance between work and life and what ultimately will bring joy in his Forbes article, The Crucial Thing Missing from the Work-Life Balance Debate. In his article, Coleman argues that the traditional work-life balance debate is based on old terminology and goals, and that a new framework is required to truly understand the dilemma. Most people, Coleman believes, prioritize work over home life, their professional pursuits purely centered only on financial gain and advancement. Home life, on the other hand, represents the area that provides enjoyment and happiness. For most people, a conflict ensues between these two spheres vying for time in the day, but in the end, most people simply carve out fleeting moments of happiness amid all the daily drudgery of work and responsibilities. But Coleman believes happiness is not the true goal of achieving a balanced life. The ultimate goal should in fact be fulfillment and flourishing, and not only for ourselves, but for others as well. Life should, in fact, be lived as a good life, with worthy purpose and to uplift others. Coleman notes that this is similar to Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia, where action should lead to well-being for yourself and others as well. Coleman therefore proposes a new theory of the balanced life and charts out his new concept as follows. Coleman suggests that the term work should not be limited to professional life, but should be considered as anything we have to do. Conversely, the term life should refer to anything we want to do. Under this scenario, the lines can be blurred between life and work. This acknowledges that the responsibilities or chores that we are expected to be done at home or under the life banner can be classified as things we have to do. Activities like making a bed, doing laundry, watching children, responsibilities that are often considered unpleasant but take place in the home. Conversely, activities at work like coming up with fresh ideas, creating unique presentations, and sharing new information can be fun and rewarding. These are want-to-do activities in a place that is often filled with have-to-do activities. Coleman posits that we accept the sacrifices of the mundane, completing those things we have to do because they must be done for our own good and for the good of others, yet still engages in the fun activities that bring us joy and energize us. This is where the true balance lies in the work-life debate. Live a life that combines purposeful commitment to self and to others, enriched by the joy of family and professional pursuits. Consequently, according to Coleman, this is the kind of life that is both fulfilling and flourishing. Coleman outlines 3 reasons why this new framework supports an effective work-life balance. First, it is flexible. This framework accommodates various states of personal and professional life and can be used throughout the transition of those stages. For instance, it can be applied when you are single or married, working on an assembly line, or being CEO of a large company. It can be applied to stay-at-home moms or career women who opt to never have children. Regardless at what life stage one is experiencing, there are ways that can be fleshed out so that you may find a balance that makes you fulfilled. Second, this framework forces us to evaluate each sphere of life in the scope of its contribution to our ultimate balance. For instance, one should ask themselves, am I living a life that is superficial and only for myself? Or, am I sacrificing so much for my family and colleagues that I have no joy at all? Through careful evaluation, one can minimize the responsibilities that are overburdening, add fun activities if needed, or find how to get some joy out of those routine chores that need to get done. Lastly, This framework forces us to shift our focus away from individualizing each task and judging it on a scale of, am I spending enough time doing X or should I spend more time doing Y? And moving to a holistic approach of life being made up of different measures of all elements. Asking questions of ourselves such as what makes me happy, what am I willing to sacrifice, what is fulfilling me personally or professionally, will lead to a path of fulfillment, joy, and purpose. The manner in which Coleman presents his topic, along with the style of his writing, suggests a formalist approach to the material. The formalist approach seeks a correct formulaic response to states of good and evil, seeks unity in its purpose and structure, and encourages objective views. To begin, Coleman has utilized a basic structure to outline his argument. He wastes no time introducing the problem, in this case the concept of work as all-consuming and home life as the place where happiness resides. He then offers his thesis for balance, noting that these spheres of life are actually intermingled, with elements of both happiness and unhappiness existing in both realms. He subsequently creates a framework to display his analysis and follows this with a carefully itemized list of the reasons why his theory is successful at providing a solution to the original problem of creating a work-life balance. What the reader immediately understands in the opening paragraph is that the piece is going to present a conflict and that the author is personally invested in the argument. This conflict provides the tension in the piece, which is often an element found in a formalist work. This tension grounds the themes presented in the article, which include good versus evil, the duality of life, and the conflict in reaching a balance of both. Later, when Coleman describes his new theory, redefining the terms of work and life, he reconciles them in a balanced structure, thus creating a solution to the conflict and providing unity, another key element of fundamentalism. Coleman creatively uses diction and form to support his argument and draw the reader into the conflict at a personal level. From the opening sentence, he uses language that provides an image for the reader. He states, "I'm often frustrated by the prevailing conversation around work-life balance." Coleman's use of the term frustrated immediately sets the tone of the piece, leading the reader to make a sympathetic connection to a situation that has yet to be described. He sets up the reader to be open to his interpretation of the events. He subsequently uses italics on terms such as happy, balanced life, good, and good life, highlighting positive forces which in turn project the image that Coleman's framework will provide the happiness factor essential to balance. Coleman also employs everyday tasks to symbolically highlight what are good activities and bad activities. He deems laundry, diaper changing, hanging curtains, committee meetings, presentations, and difficult conversations with colleagues as necessary evils, sacrifices, and the price one pays for happiness. Conversely, playing with his kids, going to concerts, having dinner discussions, innovation in the office, and synthesizing new concepts are considered good, joyful, and energizing activities. All of the examples that Coleman employs are based on current society's perception of what is symbolically good or bad, which feeds into Coleman's desire to produce a new framework to address the argument. Formalism, though, is not the only literary theory that can be applied to Coleman's article. Digging deeper into the material itself, the author presents that the goal we are ultimately striving for is fulfillment and human flourishing, both others and ours. This analysis suggests a basis in Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic views of the mind having three functional aspects: the id, superego, and ego. The id represents one's desires, the superego the internalization of the standards of morality, and the ego tries to negotiate the conflicts between them. In the traditional structure of the work-life balance dilemma, happiness resides in the realm of home life, the id, while undesirable tasks occur in the work life or the superego. But as established in Coleman's framework, the lines are more subtle, as work and home life are blurred. It encompasses a more holistic view of tasks and human desires falling in both realms. Coleman identifies the human desire for pleasure, or id, as having fun with one's children, going to the theater, innovating at work while acknowledging that we have responsibilities, the superego, such as laundry, babysitting, and work presentations. The ego's job in this instance is to create the work-life balance that Coleman alludes to. The ego would therefore strive for fulfillment as a means of achieving balance or compromise in all realms. Coleman adds another layer to this personal balance, uplifting not only oneself to this level, but others as well. This would mean curbing the id's desire to self-gratify and think only of itself, in favor of being selfless and caring. Therefore, according to Coleman, moving away from the id by injecting some sacrifice perpetuated by the superego is part of the process of creating the ultimate level of fulfillment. Examples of the chasm between work and life described in Coleman's article can be seen in both The Dragon, written by Catherine Gouvier, and Man Descending, written by Guy Vanderhaeghe. In The Dragon, the main protagonist is a psychiatrist who, upon being denied love and happiness in his younger years, embarks on a crusade of living a sterile, ultra-professional work life, devoid of friends, family, and joy. He does not want to seem to enjoy his work, and does not have any life outside his office walls. The psychiatrist is an example of what Coleman would characterize as unbalanced, as he does not have any joyful and fulfilling activities to engage in so as to offset his drudgery. He is not flourishing, and does not even believe others are truly flourishing from his expertise. He is completely stagnant, hiding behind his work-related tasks and foregoing any attempts to be happy. In fact, the psychiatrist has no good part to his life. In effect, he has only one side to his existence, and will ultimately never be fulfilled or flourish. Conversely, Victoria, the antagonist in Man Descending, represents a situation where the traditional work-life balance model is completely reversed. Victoria is a career woman whose husband Ed has been let go from his job. He lacks ambition and does not put in any effort to find new employment. Victoria loathes coming home to Ed, and they often fight over trivial matters. For Victoria's home provides anything but joy. Meanwhile, Victoria is having an affair with Howard, a man she met at work. She enjoys going to the office and is fulfilled by the relationship that work and Howard has provided for her. Victoria's two worlds collide, both literally and figuratively, when her and Ed attend a party where Howard is also in attendance. The men come to blows outside the party, but this resolves nothing. Ed acknowledges Victoria's lack of joy at home and offers to be a better man, but she does not accept that change can happen. The only way it seems Victoria will attain any fulfillment is by leaving her current home life entirely, expanding her work life to include elements of a new home life, and flourishing by merging the two. It is quite clear that Coleman believes that the traditional view of work-life balance should be replaced by a new approach focusing on joyfulness and flourishing. Consequently, the intent of his article is to persuade the reader to understand his argument and agree with his point of view. To attain this goal, the author employs the four elements of a persuasive writing style. First, the author is intent on proving the traditional theory is wrong. In this case, Coleman suggests that the existing view whereby people try to create a tolerable existence between work, which is filled with tasks that are all bad, and home life is filled with all good, is inaccurate, and that his new framework is in fact the correct method to understand the dilemma. Second, Coleman is stirring up empathy for his cause by describing common scenarios that the average person can relate to, such as playing with one's children and taking their spouse out to a concert, as good activities. Meanwhile, he pits those good activities against undesirable ones, such as doing laundry and changing diapers, which most people would agree are not pleasurable. He draws the reader into feeling an emotional response by choosing these recognizable activities, so that he subsequently does not have to convince them of anything they don't already have a gut reaction to. Third, Coleman creates interest for the reader by incorporating a graph to present his framework and by including thoughtful and relatable examples to support his thesis. This creates interest as it opens the door to something new and exciting for the reader to evaluate. Lastly, the author urges the reader to action. At the end of the article, Coleman asks the reader questions about their life and encourages them to answer them truthfully so as to make the necessary life changes, creating a joyful and fulfilling life. Questions such as, am I living happily but superficially for myself? Or, what does flourishing mean to me? Ask the reader to become involved beyond the written page. He encourages the reader to implement new framework he is proposing into their own life to achieve lasting happiness. Careful use of language is important when trying to convey new ideas and change perception. Coleman employs some interesting literary devices to enhance the argument he presents for his framework. These include alliteration, assonance, onomatopoeia, sarcasm, visual imagery, and parallelism. Alliteration can be found throughout the article and is prevalent in the phrases. The unwritten assumption here is that people prioritize the professional over the personal, and what does flourishing and fulfillment look like for me? In addition, there are many instances of assonance, such as others and ours, and happy and balanced. The use of onomatopoeia can be found in the phrasing. They assume that a certain number of hours sprinkled at work, at home, at the gym, or with friends will yield a good life. This phrase also demonstrates a tone of sarcasm, as it is making light of the fact that it would be impossible to live a good life with only small bits of fun interjected into the day. Coleman employs the technique of visual imagery when he says that, at home, you're caught running errands, doing housework, and dealing with problems rather than enjoying friends, family, or hobbies. This is drudgery. It may have a purpose, but it's joyless and draining. One can vividly see oneself doing the day-to-day chores when reading this sentence. Lastly, Coleman uses parallelism extensively to create repetition and flow in his arguments. This can be seen in such phrases as, am I investing in and sacrificing for others, colleagues, family members, and friends? Or, knowing this balance, we can address it, shedding responsibilities when we need to, adding joyful activities where they're called for, and finding ways to discover the joy even in life's difficult or routine activities. Even though this article highlights a 21st century problem, the same theme of finding self-awareness and being true to oneself is very prevalent in the novel The Wars, written by Timothy Finley. In The Wars, Robert Ross goes on a journey of self-awareness that takes him through battles, both physical and emotional. He is constantly faced with moments of conflict that force him to look deep within himself, to find what makes him happy, afraid, proud, alive, and most importantly, what gives him the strength to live a life that gives him peace of mind, body, and soul. Although Robert's life is filled with terrible tragedy, suffering, and loss, he still has moments of incredible friendship, accomplishment, and happiness. In the end, Robert seems content and balanced, living side by side with Juliet, making peace with his former life while reaching a new level of self-fulfillment. Taken in a larger social context, Coleman is writing about much more than work life versus home life, fun activities versus mundane chores, and sacrifice versus self-gratification. Coleman is in fact asking the reader to look inside themselves and find out who they really are. When he asks the reader where they find meaning and what matters in their life, he is asking for much more than an answer to the work-life balance question. Coleman is in fact asking the reader to find out what they stand for and what is important to them, so that they can be true to themselves. Ultimately, Coleman hopes the reader will come to believe that the work-life balance is not about the tasks we perform in everyday life, but about introspection, personal growth, and inner fulfillment.